Kara, you got any news for us today?
Yes, I do. So, a new report from Johns Hopkins University says that a flu-like virus could spread throughout the world in as little as 36 hours, killing tens of millions of people. They were warned that only 13 countries have the necessary resources and preparedness to fight off a potential pandemic. Most prepared countries include Britain, the U.S., Australia, Canada, France, and Holland. Scientists may have had evidence of life on Mars more than 40 years ago, according to one NASA scientist who worked on a 1976 mission to test Martian soil. Nutrients were released into the soil and then monitored to see if they would be consumed by living organisms. They were. However, this experiment was dismissed at the time as a fluke, perhaps the work of a chemical mimicking the effect of biological life. Strangely enough, in the next 43 years, not a single lander followed up on these experiments to get more accurate results. A reporter released a story last week about a graduate student who interviewed Japanese taxi drivers who had encountered ghosts in the aftermath of the deadly tsunami of 2011. Numerous individuals reported picking up passengers only for them to vanish mysteriously. In some cases, logs of unpaid fares made contemporaneously backed up these accounts. One notably spooky encounter went like this. A cab driver passing in the town of Ishinomaki was hailed by a woman in an area where almost all of the buildings had been completely flattened by the tsunami. Indeed, he was surprised to see her in such a deserted part of town. She asked to go to the Minami Hama district. The cab driver asked if she was sure, since the district had been mostly destroyed. The back seat was silent for a moment, then in a trembling voice the young woman said, "Have I died?" Frightened, the cab driver turned around to find the back seat empty. The woman had vanished. Urban legend? Maybe. But one of many. Back to you, Chauncey.
That is absolutely terrifying.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I read that and it's like, this story is a gift to me, to paranormal radio hosts everywhere.
Yeah, I think the Japanese and Victorian England are like vying for the best ghost stories. You know, I'm not sure who's going to come out on top there. I think we might have ourselves a social media poll.
Japanese or Victorian England. Well, Japan has a pretty big advantage in that it still exists.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So
but so do a lot of the buildings and stuff that are supposedly haunted, you know, from...
And even not Victorian England, if you go to sort of 19th century, like Southern Gothic, for example, it's not just in England. There's kind of that style of old and spooky from all over. Gothic.
I bet you, if it's solely based off of architecture, I'm going to have to say that there's probably a lot of good untapped ghost stories in 18th and early 19th century Mexico, where everything was sort of like built out of one color of stone and all decorations were made out of black iron. You know what the time frame I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, I can picture that.
That there's some definite good ghost story possibilities
there. Yeah. So for, any ghost listening to the show, try manifesting more. I mean, geez.
Totally.
We can't hear you. Speak up.
Right. We're being outdone by the Brits and the Japanese, man. Come on.
Yeah.
You got to get to haunting, get in there, make it happen.
I don't care how much, of your spiritual energy it takes for you to appear or whatever. Throw some dishes around. Bite some people. Do whatever.
And then life on Mars, this is the second time that we have... From earlier times, basically been saying that we might have already found proof of life on Mars. The other one would be the asteroid. I mean, not the asteroid, the meteorite.
Right.
That had fossils that looked like bacteria fossils, but they were too small to be any Earth bacteria, but they looked just like them, only smaller, and they had proven that meteorite had come from an impact on Mars.
Yeah, I think the root problem is that we kind of have a real sketchy definition of life that's sort of Earth-centric, and we're just not very good at drawing a line where we talk about, these organic molecules are life and these aren't.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, but I mean, I think if it eats and makes babies, it's life.
Well, some people say viruses aren't alive. They do that.
Oh, I think they're live. Yeah.
Well,
no,
I think so too, but for a long time, and I think even to this day, there was sort of a paradigm in the medical community that no, viruses aren't alive.
Well, I live in this sort of I believe in this fringe belief called evolution, in which point virus is alive.
Get out of here, you heathen.
I know.
You're contaminating the minds of our children.
And then the flu pandemic is a little bit foreboding for us because...
Somewhat concerning, I guess.
Well, one thing that I'm working on to spin off of our show is I want to start doing the doomsday forecast.
Yes.
And I want to, start talking about...
just keeping an eye on some numbers.
Keeping an eye on some numbers for how exactly the world is going to end. And a pandemic... we're only 13 countries, 13 very melanin-deficient countries, are the only survivors.
Nice way to put it.
Yes, are the only survivors. I could see somebody trying to make that happen in the present day and age.
I feel like a world where the white people are the ones who survive is a world with zero justice.
Yeah.
That's kind of...
But at the same time, with both of us being white people, I would like to see a world where we're part of the people who survive.
I guess.
I hope to die in my sleep. I don't really care how it happens.
You can die in your sleep. You just...
I don't care how it happens.
Sleep a lot, up the odds.
I just want to die in my sleep.
Okay.
How do you want to
die? In an interesting way.
In a blaze of glory?
Not necessarily a blaze
Bon Jovi style?
Not necessarily a blaze of glory. I have two criteria. I don't want it to be something where people are like, what an idiot. But I do want it to be bizarre and inexplicable, like eaten by a huge fish or something.
Right, yeah.
I want to get into a swimming pool and just be devoured by a tuna.
Yeah.
That was in there.
Preferably something where nobody has to deal with my body, where I don't excrete anything after I die. I want to go out like a Jedi.
I want to
disappear.
Empty stomach, definitely, for when you die.
I want to become a Force ghost. All right, so we're coming up on some Halloween stuff. First off here, I had some interesting... I was just looking up famous people whose birthdays are on Halloween, and we're looking at some cool people. John Candy, a very fitting last name.
Okay.
Peter Jackson, also probably fairly fitting, seeing how of his horror roots. Christopher Columbus, speaking of whites traveling the world.
Oh, God.
Not the movie director, Chris Columbus, but the actual Christopher Columbus.
Sure.
In terrifying combo, Rob Schneider and Vanilla Ice, both Halloween birthdays.
That's concerning.
Well, the funny thing is on Saturday or Friday or something, at Wind River, Vanilla Ice is performing for Halloween, so it's like his birthday bash or something.
Yeah, you'd think he'd take his birthday off.
But... In better rap news, Ad Rock from the Beastie Boys, Halloween birthday.
Okay.
Jimmy Savile in terrifying news again. Do you know who that is?
No.
He was a famous disc jockey from England that was beloved by the entire country until after he died, and then they found out that he was a massive Me Too offender.
He was a rapist.
Yes. And not all
massive Me Too offender.
And not all were in the proper age bracket. Michael Landon, I have a theory about how Michael Landon is, it doesn't really matter. We're coming back, and we're going to talk about strangers with candy. Are people really trying to kill our kids with candy on a Halloween? You're listening to Radio Wasteland.
I am.